You're watching Beyond Markets. I'm Esther. Awoniyi. Welcome. On the show today, we'll take a look at how technology is changing the face of business in Africa. As always, you can join the conversation with the hashtag Beyond Market. You can also follow my Twitter handle too, at Esther Ubodaga. Now, technology has been a major enabler in helping African entrepreneurs create homegrown solutions. Now, to discuss how Africans are using technology to create innovative solutions and the economic impact of these ideas, my guests are Eunice Adeyemi. She's the convener of the Africa as a Platform. Beri Mbenkun, founder and CEO of Nanoarc. Onyeka, Akumah, co-founder and CEO of Farmcrowdy. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
An exciting topic we're looking at today. We've talked on my show, I've talked, so much about it, how technology is changing the face of business, especially among young business owners, young entrepreneurs. But I want us to share our perspective. Eunice, I'll start with you. I know you've heard so many stories, and that's one of the reasons why you founded the Africa as a Platform. Share with us one or two stories that stand out for you, how you see technology changing African businesses.
Okay, so for us, Africa as a Platform was created so that we could actually provide an ecosystem for those in that space, an innovative space, to be able to showcase and highlight the things that they're doing. We met a young man who actually created technology that enables him to be able to use an iron. Given our society the way that it is, that light is a major issue across the continent. And so what he had done was he actually created a way that he could actually use power, solar power, to actually power his iron, to be able to iron his clothes to go to school. And for me, it's an African problem, and he's figured out a way to use Western innovation to actually solve an African problem for himself in his own space. And those are some of the things that we actually want to encourage. We want to give them the opportunity to highlight some of the things that they're doing right now to actually solve some of our own problems.
Okay, Beri?
Well, from my perspective, I looked at nanotechnology, which is a platform that allows you to be able to achieve more with less material. So if you look at the major things that happen in society, people always believe that advancement or growth comes in a quantitative manner. But actually, this happens in a qualitative manner. If you do things right, you don't need much of it. So people keep complaining about resources running low. But I think we have more than we need. We're just mismanaging it. And so with nanotechnology, one is able to, or at least what we do at Nanoarc, is to redesign the structure of materials so that they perform at an amplified level, so that you need less of it in order to be able to achieve the same targeted goal, regardless of the technological domain. Now, at the core, Nanoarc is a material design company. So if you look around you, most people think, well, we're in IT and we're in textile or we're in construction. But the unification factor there is that they're all material-based. How well a computer works, how well a piece of concrete holds, how well a piece of fabric performs if you're looking at smart fabric, which is what I'll be speaking about tomorrow. Okay. All of that is very reliant on how the material is designed that actually is then used to build the technology. So that's pretty much what I do.
Now, Onyeka, you're from an expert in the agri space. We hear these stories, across the board. And when we hear about agriculture, and of course, there's also tech is also doing some very great things. So share with us your perspective in terms of how technology is also changing the agri space.
The first thing I tell people is that there are millions of people in Nigeria at the moment that are currently going through a phase where we call food scarcity, and the hunger is pretty much a problem. Yet we're producing a lot of food that can sustain us, but 50% of it is wasted before it gets to the table. For us in Farmcrowdy, our goal is pretty much using technology to solve these key problems. One of it is that we've also noticed that 38 million small-scale farmers produce most of the food we eat, but they don't have smart farming techniques to work on the farms and grow on the extra land that they have. Two, they are mostly considered unbankable and unable to get loans from the bank and get the funds they need to grow their capacity. And three, even when they solve the first two problems, at harvest, they don't know the best market to sell their farm produce in order to earn a decent margin. So for us in Farmcrowdy, we decided to use mobile technology, web technology, to crowdfund some of the major funds we need in order to invest in these farms, train the farmers in how to learn smart farming techniques with some of the partners we've associated ourselves with, and then provide a prearranged market for them to sell their farm produce in order to earn a decent margin from farming as a business. All of this has been able to happen because we've used technology as a tool. And that is how I see technology. Right now I'm involved in Farmcrowdy, and the goal is improving food production in our region and growing food security. There are other areas where technology can also ride as the bedrock of enabling innovations that will solve problems in real estate, in transportation, in power. And so all of these sectors, for me, are also point of focus for us as to how we use technology to solve problems in Africa, not just in the food chain, not just in the food value chain, but also in all of these real sectors. And so one is excited when we see examples like what's happening in the commerce space, or what's happening in the video entertainment space with the likes of the Orokos and the likes of the Congas. And all of these platforms are using technology to take what originally was just a bare Nollywood space or a bare commerce space, and you go to shops and get stuff, and now using technology to help people solve the problem of space in between getting what you need to what you want, and space helping people to get solutions to the problems that they have. I mean, scarcity, I mean, availability, I mean, and all of these things are just using technology, mobile phone devices, using the web to solve these problems. And so for me, I'm quite excited about the domain we're in now, and the beauty of what is happening also in Africa with mobile technology. And so I'm
going to ask you to hold that thought. Now, Eunice, you say that despite all these advances, there are still unique challenges that need to be solved to, I don't know, maybe put more spotlight on what, how the value that these technologies or these advancements, have brought to the continent. Care to shed more light on that?
So I always say this, and he raised a very valid point. We've got so much potential in the country and on the continent, and I think that if we actually focused a bit more on not just the innovation that can take place, but the actual problem that we have, and then we can then create the technology to solve those specific problems. So he's created technology that enables us to solve an agricultural problem that we've always had. We've got this deficit of food, so great, not a problem. I've created this platform called Farmcrowding, so we'll be able to merge together the finance guys, we're able to get the farmers, we're able then to train the farmers in terms of how do you sell. That's a platform that enables us to solve a systemic problem that we have across the continent. And so we created Africa as a platform to enable us to talk about the likes of Farmcrowding, to enable us to talk about the likes of Nanoarc, so that we'll be able to say, you know what, guys, we're doing this innovative stuff here. We can do this stuff. It's been done before. We've started. But what are you doing? So if you have a thought, if you have an idea, come share it on this platform. Let's give you the tools required for you to be able to actually grow your business, or to be able to actually enhance your thought, so that we can support you while you're thinking about how we solve these problems.
When you talk about support, does that involve mentoring?
Yeah, so the great thing about it, so it's funding, it's mentoring, and these are all things that, most entrepreneurs will tell you that I don't have enough money to do things. And I always like to tell people it's not necessarily about the money. So, Beri spoke about the fact that we have so much wasted opportunity. And so it's not just about funding. We need to start thinking more along the lines of, how do I get somebody to mentor me? So how do I go and I learn from somebody who's already done this? Which is why we have what's called an incubator space that's going to highlight a lot of the incubators that are already doing things, innovative things on the continent, at the event, at Africa as a platform tomorrow. And so we'll have that space so you can actually go and learn from them. Say, you know what, I'd like to be mentored by one of you guys. Can you guys mentor me in terms of how do I grow my thought pattern, not just my business, but my thinking behind what I'm trying to do?
So, Beri, do you agree with that in terms of I don't know if you've had that experience in terms of how the kind of challenges that young African entrepreneurs have? I mean, they have these great ideas. Some of them have funding challenges. Some of them are doing this in their own little corner of the continent. Nobody knows what they're doing, or perhaps they just don't have that opportunity to be on a certain platform where those ideas are shown to the world.
Well, I would say it is an African problem, but it is also a European problem. It's an American problem. In fact, it's a human problem. The problem human beings have is adjusting perspective. So overall, I tell people, if you're going to succeed, money is not what gets you there. Money is like fuel in a tank. you can have fuel in a tank. But if you don't understand where you're going and why you're going, and understand that there's a journey to map out, instead of, taking detours so that you don't run out on resources, on fuel, as I call it, then you could have a Lamborghini for all I care, with the tank and extra fuel in the back, and you'll still run out, and you didn't go anywhere, and you were going in circles. So this is the point. So the whole issue really is of not just giving money to people and saying, hey, look, here you go, run your business. It's about asking them why they're doing what they're doing. What is your goal? And I usually tell people, if your goal is just money, stick to your job.
Okay. Well,
yes.
Some might say, I
job.
need money to advance,
well, if your goal is just, but what is the point in advancing if you don't know where you're going? Where are you advancing to? So the point is understanding how to manage resources. So if you give them the understanding of why they're doing what they're doing, and then supply them with the fuel to get there.
Correct.
So it starts with the mentoring. It starts with understanding why you do what you do, so that you can grow it properly and manage your resources. So you don't get someone and say, oh, I wish I knew I could have done this.
Correct.
No, you say, no, we're trying to get here, and right now I know we need a truck, but that's at this stage. It looks like a necessity, but it might actually be a luxury. So why don't we just lease when we need, and eventually when we have the resources and we've grown to capacity, we then purchase our own. So a lot of people focus about image, and that's a problem. It's about image, it's about money, and so they miss the perspective, and then you can actually fund people and they don't get anywhere.
Interesting stuff. Very good points you made there. Onyeka, we have less than 2 minutes before we take a break. Your perspective on that?
My perspective is, just similar to what you said. I tell people that are trying to start their own businesses or have ideas about starting their own businesses, you have several capital you can ride on. It's not just money. Money is just one resource.
Correct.
I am a product of relationship currency, and relationship is built on integrity, is built on trust, is built on a legacy of keeping to your word and doing exactly what you say you would do. Many of the companies I've started or worked with, the individuals that started it with me, which speaks also to the team that believes in the vision, many of them have worked with me in other places. And if I had a reputation or had that relationship currency where it was a bit messed up around working with these individuals, calling them in to work with me in a new project will be a problem. Initially, every startup founder and every entrepreneur has to find a way of using the resources he has at his disposal, which includes his skill, which includes his relationship, which includes access to the materials that will help him succeed, and take advantage of them and build an MVP that you can display out there to the person that will eventually fund your idea. But only after you've done these things, then you can go out and look for the money that will help you run. Like she mentioned, you have built a fantastic Lamborghini and you know how to drive. Then you put the fuel in the car, then you move to the destination you're going to.
Okay, well, interesting point you made there. We have to take a very quick break. Stick around for us, so we'll be back. I've been speaking to Eunice Adeyemi. She is a convener of Africa as a platform. Beri Mbenkun, the founder and CEO of Nanoarc, and Onyeka Akumah, the co-founder and CEO of Farmcrowdy. We are discussing how technology is disrupting businesses in Africa. And still with me are Eunice Adeyemi. She is a convener of Africa as a platform. Beri Mbenkun, the founder and CEO of Nanoarc, and Onyeka Akumah, co-founder and CEO of Farmcrowdy. Thank you guys for sticking around. Eunice, let me start with you now. Of course, you're looking forward to this big event. The theme for this year, that's for the app, machines, millennials, and money. Tell us about that.
Yes, so we decided to focus on three things that are major issues across the continent. Of course, money, machines. Definitely, you can't do anything else without machines. And then millennials, they're the next wave of the future. So this year we decided to focus on machines, millennials, and money.
Okay.
In addition to that, we then had subsections that dealt with agriculture, healthcare, and finance. As Africa as a platform is it's supposed to be an enabling environment to ensure that it creates an ecosystem where entrepreneurs, innovators can come, have intellectual conversations, get insight, create relationships, create friendships, create partnerships within the technology space across the continent. So while the maiden event is here in Nigeria, the following years are going to be across the continent.
Interesting, but what is your hope in terms of what will be big key takeaways for participants? I mean, so I'm sure some will be hoping for, connections.
Yeah, yeah. So
life-changing connections.
A lot of the key takeaways for us, though, is not just the connections, because definitely you will make the connections with some fantastic speakers that we're going to have on the panel.
Okay.
But it's not just the connections, but it's also the insight and the information that you're going to gather. Information is power. Without information, you really can't do anything. So people will leave with new insight into how to propel their businesses or their ideas to the next level. And then, of course, get the necessary information required, and then the contacts within the exhibition area. Okay.
Now, Beri, I want us to talk specifics now. Nanotechnology and Africa and how it's solving some of Africa's social problems. You talked, about how this is changing the space, but I want us to talk specifics. In what areas are we seeing change? African countries using nanotechnology to solve some of their problems.
Well, the issue that I'm targeting, which I'd be emphasizing in my talk, is that of how our lives are affected, health. So without your proper health, there's really nothing you can do. Doesn't matter how smart you are or how rich you are. I tell people the rich people might only die in a comfortable bed, but they die anyway. So I looked at the overall problem, which is not just an African problem. Again, I like to think globally, but I also like to think that Africa can pave the way.
Interesting.
So we have this issue of bacteria.
Okay.
So in some parts of the world, I'm not going to say where, it seems slightly neglected to some extent, where it's not really being tackled properly. A lot of people don't really think managing sanitation is an issue. In some other parts, it's been addressed, but however, with aggressive solutions that have turned out to not be solutions. And, Alexander Fleming warned us about the issue of mismanagement of penicillin, speaking of mismanaging resources. And so now you have problems of drug-resistant bacteria, which has created an even bigger issue with, I think you even had at least 23,000 people dying in the US just from a problem of the kind. So in Africa, rather than looking to tackle the issue with antibiotics or harsh strategies, medicines that the bacteria are smarting up to and actually become resistant to, I figured with nanotechnology, there are materials that are sustainable, that are abundant in the Earth's crust, that we can use when they're designed properly at a particular scale. Now you have to understand some fundamentals of nanotechnology, which I'm not going to bother you with today, but I will scratch your brains with them tomorrow. So actually, they're materials that actually perform this duty, and bacteria have not been able to build resistance to them. You see, we learn from nature when we design materials. You see that every little thing in nature has found a way to protect itself. Now with the availability of so-called electron microscopes that lets us see things at nanoscale, we actually observed that all of these defense mechanisms are done with nanostructures in insects, on the skin of sharks, on plants. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Sorry to butt in. My question is, to what extent are African countries, governments embracing nanotechnology? I mean, for someone who is hearing about it, who is not too familiar, it sounds expensive. I mean, we're still talking about technology on the surface, but now we're talking nanotech. So is it? Yeah,
it sounds expensive, but I have to say, when done right, it is not expensive. It sounds expensive to everybody because I think, nanotechnology is this, what everyone still thinks is a new thing, but it's been around for more than 20 years. Like I said, again, it was always about figuring out how to make it in a sustainable and cost-effective manner, which is still a problem around the world today. So it's something that governments have been reluctant to come to because people think nanomaterials are poisonous, or they think nanotechnology
I mean, there's some ethical issues, regulations and ethical. I mean, nanotechnology comes with its own ethical and unique risks, as it were. And I hear regulation worldwide is still a bit inadequate. And so if Africa is going to be embracing that, I'm just thinking
we need to actually understand fundamentally that just because we now know that it's there doesn't mean that we created it. Nanomaterials have always been around. So that's the first stigma that has to be cleared. People have to know that just because now we have electron microscopes, it's like someone saying, oh, well, because you created the light microscope, you created the bacteria. No, it was always there. And so what people need to understand is that we've taken time to see that it's there, understand the benefits thereof, and now it is up to us to now develop solutions that are not intoxicating. So in my fundamental level, if a material is toxic in the bulk, I wouldn't encourage it to be made as a nanomaterial synthetically, because we can't see these things. And so we'd have to work with safer materials and then be smart enough to design them to perform the right duties.
I'm sure we can go. No, but it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
But Onyeka, let me come to you. Now, I mean, agric experts always tell us that, look, population growth still outpaces farm productivity. And I know that you talked earlier about how technology is changing, things, even for small-scale farmers, soil technology and, one or two other things. But I want you to speak specifically the Nigeria situation. When one hears about farm technology, the first thing that comes to my mind is how affordable is it for the small-scale farmer, even for the young entrepreneur who wants to, who leaves school and wants to go into farming. So I'm thinking, how affordable is it, and to what extent to what level is it being deployed, actually being used, here in Nigeria?
The first thing is that we have 200 million acres of farmland in Nigeria, arable farmland in Nigeria, and at the moment we're still using just below 30% of that. And this is with over 38 million small-scale farmers working amongst the pool of farmers that are working already. And so it gives you the opportunity to understand that with 186 million people in the country, you have the opportunity of using technology to solve the problem of feeding these people. And so in deploying these technologies, one of the key things we've found out is that farming in season and farming off season with irrigation farming devices is as expensive as any other person out there will say it is. And we currently are depending on the government to implement some of these devices for us to take advantage of. But across the value chain, from production to warehousing to transportation to exportation, there are several places that technology also has played its role in. And one of it, if I would speak about, especially in the production stage which we're working with, is getting the resources for the farmers to get the farm inputs they need to work with. And that's pool that we pull in with Farmcrowdy right now, and getting those resources for farmers to work with is one thing we've been able to solve with technology by providing a website where people can now see the updates from the farm, put their monies through and get the inputs to the farmer so that the farmer can work. That is one problem we solve for the farmers.
And it's easy to use.
And it's easy to use. I mean, you can easily download the Farmcrowdy app on the App Store, on Google Play Store, and then what you get is you will be able to follow a farm, but in addition to that, you can sponsor a farm. And when you follow a farm, what you're doing is you're getting updates, pictures, videos, updates about what is happening on the farm, so that you too can make an informed decision around investing in a farming space when you want to. But in addition to that is the opportunity to now find a farmer you can partner with through the mobile app, and then you're consistently getting pictures and videos and updates. But beyond that, you're having impact plus return, because at the end of the day, you will get a return at harvest.
So is this widespread? I'm thinking, we have so many farmers in Nigeria, obviously. Is this widespread? What is the traction? Are we gaining pace? Are more farmers using this too? In
the last 12 months since we've launched, we've worked with more than 2,000 small-scale farmers already, and grown their income by an average of 80% within this period. Growing their income has been because we split profit between the sponsor, the farmer, and us, and they make 40% of what they harvest, what they originally would have not been able to work on. So a farmer has 5 acres of farmland and he can only work on 2. The extra 3 is what we lease and we work with him on. And so he makes profit on that extra land or extra space that he wouldn't necessarily have been able to work on. We've now cut across 8 states in Nigeria, and we're looking at expanding to more states over time. This has had impact on over 2,000 small-scale farmers, but indirectly on over 5,000 farmers. Because, for instance, if I take a farm we have in Akwa Ibom, over 200 hectares of farmland in Akwa Ibom, there are over 1,600 farmers that are currently working on that farm. 600 of them direct, and 300 of them are women. And every time you work with women farmers, you're not affecting just that woman, we're affecting the families.
The entire community we hear. So, Onyeka, I'm sorry to we have exactly 60 seconds now. Africa is said to be, the next continent of opportunity.
Yes.
10 seconds each, everyone. Final thought in terms of, is the world paying attention? Are we actually going to live up to that? The world expectation,
as far as I'm concerned, the world is paying attention. and they're looking to us to actually do something wonderful. And Africa as a platform is actually going to ensure that, you know what, they can actually come and see what we're doing, see the fantastic things that these guys are putting together already as is.
Becky?
I think in challenge we found opportunity. It's beautiful because now we've seen how advancement has happened in the West or developed countries, and we've seen the mistakes, and we have a clean canvas to really do things properly now.
I would say that's a good advantage. Onyeka, 10
If
seconds.
Nigeria is 186 million people today, and by 2050, where the World Bank is saying we will get to 400 million people, we're going to be the third largest country in the world. That tells you the potential across the different things that these people need. So the world is seriously paying attention. A lot of investment is coming in. A lot of showcases happening for the entrepreneurs that are building for Africa. And I think it's an exciting time for any entrepreneur.
Thank you so much, guys. We're out of time. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today. I've been speaking to Eunice Adeyemi, convener of the Africa as a Platform, Beri Mbenkun, founder and CEO, Nanoarc, Onyeka Akumah, co-founder and CEO of Farmcrowdy.